What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas, bringing you 32 picks in 32 days. If you have not checked out the first overall pick, which is held by the Cleveland Browns, how I see that pick shaking out, and the second overall pick with the San Francisco 49ers, how do I see that pick turning out? Tune into both of those episodes. I had a 4-part show yesterday. Did very well. Thank you all for those that listened to it. For those that haven't, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Like the Facebook at Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Follow me also on Twitter at Thomas Take 92 and send me fan-submitted emails at Thomas Take 92. I'm sorry, Thomas Take 92 at gmail.com. Looking over the set list for today's show, obviously, the title is 32 picks in 32 days. We are on to the third overall pick, and that pick is held by the Bears, the Chicago Bears. It was so hard for me to look at this team and find any remote positives that this team could have in the coming years. There's a lot of holes on this team, a lot of questions. The number one question is, Jay Cutler, obviously. I'll get to that a little bit later, but the Bears of today are a far cry from what they used to be as far as the powerhouse defense. The 85 Bears, the Bears of the 80s are not only long gone, years-wise, literally based on time, but they're gone from the actual fabric of their organization. They're not a defensive team. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the National Football League today. And it's a shame. I don't really, obviously that was a long time ago. It was over 30 years ago that the Bears won that Super Bowl with one of the best defenses of all time, the best defense of all time in my eyes. But they are just not what they used to be. And that's not even what they used to be even back to when they went to the Super Bowl with Lovie Smith up against the Colts. I believe that was in 2006. 2006, I believe. So there's a lot to be said there. John Fox is their head coach. John Fox was in Carolina, went to the Super Bowl and lost. He was in Denver. They had that really successful season with Peyton Manning. They met the Seattle Seahawks that year in the Super Bowl, and they just got just completely ran over by the Seahawks that year. And then, shortly after that, John Fox was gone. And now John Fox is in Chicago, and it hasn't really been smooth sailing for John Fox. It's been very tough the last, couple years that he's been the coach there. Mainly, in my eyes, it's been tough due to the fact that this team has zero identity whatsoever. The bright spot on this team last year was running back Jordan Howard, who came in to play off of an injury, and took over the starting role, took over the starting job. Jeremy Langford went down. He came in, and he was one of the top rushers, the second highest rusher in the league this past year, which that says a lot. It was the first time two rookies led the league in rushing, and Jordan Howard was one of them. He was one of the top guys last year. So that is a bright spot. But the question remains, and it's remained for the last 3-4 years, what are the Chicago Bears going to do with Jay Cutler? I think he's gone. I think he's going to go, but it's a tough contract to just cut a guy loose and get rid of. They're in a tough situation with Jay Cutler, so could they keep him? Is there a quarterback this year that they could go after, that they could replace Jay Cutler with? Could they stand pat with Brian Hoyer? Or, as I mentioned, the fact that their defense is not what it once was. Could they go defense again, as they did last year with Leonard Floyd from Georgia? I think that could be a possibility. They could go defense at third overall as well. First guy that comes to my mind is Solomon Thomas, the defensive end from Stanford. But with Jay Cutler leaving, with all of the just real question marks for the future of this team, the best thing that Ryan Pace, the general manager for the Bears, the best thing that he could do would be to trade the third overall pick. Trade down Trade with a team that wants one of the quarterbacks, like a Watson or a Trubisky, or even if there's another player that they want, like a Solomon Thomas, like a Jamal Adams, a safety from LSU. That could be something that the Bears decide to do. And that would, a smart man would do something like that. But they obviously have to find the right fit for their franchise, the right trade that would allow them to get multiple picks. And the one team that has multiple picks in multiple rounds is the Cleveland Browns. If Cleveland thinks that now that they're getting Myles Jarrett, who I assume that they will take with the first overall pick, if they wanted to get a guy like a Mitch Trubisky with all the question marks that they have with RG3 and Josh McCown could be heading to Dallas in a trade, that could be a possibility where Cleveland decides to trade back into the top 5, sending that 12th overall pick to Chicago for a surplus of picks that allows Chicago to get one of the top receivers in this year's NFL draft to replace the now free agent Alshon Jeffrey. I think I'm onto something there. But for the sake of, the actual segment of 32 teams, 32 picks, let's just say that the 3rd overall pick is the Chicago Bears. They don't trade it. And they stand pat. They don't find a trade worth trading down for, which I think that they will. I think that they're the one team that really should trade down. You could see the first 2 teams trade down as well, but until it happens, we have to guess at what we have to go with what we have in front of us. And what we have in front of us is the draft order for this year's draft. So with the 3rd overall pick, the Chicago Bears will select quarterback Mitch Trubisky from the University of North Carolina. Trubisky is not, a Andrew Luck. He's not a, superstar, bona fide, day one, week one guy. He has intangibles that are off the charts in terms of his throwing, the way he can throw the ball on the run, the way he throws from the pocket. He has talent. No doubt about it. College statistics, as I read them now, last year, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But that was really his only year in which he had a solid season. He had one good year in college. And yet, he's probably rated as such as the best quarterback in this draft, which is debatable. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he isn't. But it's a weak quarterback class. You have him, you have Mitch Trubisky, you have Deshaun Watson, you have Deshaun Kaiser, you have Patrick Mahomes, who I talked about yesterday. You have guys that have played in offensive systems that are far and away completely different from the pro-style offense. Lining up in shotgun 8 out of 10 times, running read option. They're not West Coast offenses where the quarterback is under center, almost half the time. There's all sorts of differences from an NFL offense to a college offense. There's not bootlegs and gadget plays like they run at the University of North Carolina in the NFL. Not many coaches offer that. So, I think that the Bears are most likely to take Mitch Trubisky. I have a few friends, outside of, this podcast. It's allowed me to network and find people on Twitter. One of the guys that I talked to is a beat reporter for the Chicago Bears. I talked to him a lot leading up to this segment, and he told me that the Bears are very high on Mitch Trubisky. They like him a lot. They like his arm strength. He could throw in the Chicago weather. They feel that he's a guy that could come in and learn behind a veteran. Who that veteran is, I think it'll be Brian Hoyer. I think it's best for Jay Cutler right now. I think it's best for the Chicago Bears right now to part ways. It's been a rough go for both sides. Jay Cutler hasn't felt appreciated. The Chicago Bears feel he doesn't have the competitive fire that he should. So I think that it's time for them to part ways. Jay Cutler needs to go to a team like a 49ers team that needs a veteran quarterback. Even Denver I wouldn't rule out as a possibility for Jay Cutler going back to Denver. That would be insane, but I wouldn't rule it out. The quarterback position, though, has to be the number one priority for the Bears. Whether they find out if Jay Cutler is the guy or not, whether they decide to go with Brian Hoyer, they need to zero in on a quarterback heading into 2017 for the future of their franchise. Jay Cutler is not that guy. Brian Hoyer is not that guy. I think Mitch Trubisky could be that guy. I think that they should keep Brian Hoyer. He did some decent things last year when Jay Cutler went down. He's a smart quarterback. He was molded in the New England offense. He did some decent things in Cleveland too. And as a stopgap guy, I would take a Brian Hoyer over a Ryan Fitzpatrick any day of the week. But the quarterback position should be their number one priority. As of now, they have Hoyer, Matt Barkley from the 2013 draft class, and they should be happy that Alshon Jeffrey is gone. They're going to try to keep him. They're going to try to bring him back. But essentially, he's going to ask for way too much money. They're starting with a new quarterback soon anyway. They would be, according to myself. It would be a big distraction for that quarterback to have a wide receiver that is kind of a me guy. Of course, Alshon Jeffrey wants to get paid. He deserves to get paid. But I think that they're better off starting fresh, going with a new quarterback, new look offense. They have a young, talented running back in Jordan Howard. If Chicago doesn't make a trade, this would be the guy that I would look to go after if I were Chicago. I think this actually makes the best sense for them over a Kaiser, over a Watson. He fits their style of offense. He's very similar to Jay Cutler in a lot of ways, but he's definitely more of a competitor than Jay Cutler has shown in recent years. I'm excited to see what happens with the Bears. I'd love to see the Bears get back to some sort of respectability. They got the Packers, they got the Vikings, and they have the Lions, and the Bears have just been the bottom feeder the last few years. I talked to a Bears fan on Twitter today, and I asked the Chicago Bears fans, who would you want the Bears to take with the third overall selection? They want Deshaun Watson. And Watson is an intriguing quarterback. He went 30-3 as a starter at Clemson. But the style of offense that Clemson runs in comparison to an NFL scheme, it's going to take Watson 2 to 3 years to really step in and take the reins over of a team where I think if need be, Mitch Trubisky could come in earlier with the style of offense that the Bears want to run and succeed sooner than a Watson would. That is my take on the Chicago Bears. AK2WEBD3 tweeted me and let's see what he said here. They said, Deshaun Watson is Jim McMahon 2.0 and Mitch Trubisky is Bernie Kosar 2.0. I thought that was an interesting comparison. I'm not as high on Deshaun Watson as most are. I've watched him being a Clemson, not fan, but being that the Bills have the Clemson connection. I've been impressed, but everything that he does that's good in college, I don't know if that would translate as soon as the franchise would need it to for the NFL level. I think Trubisky's the best fit. So far, I have the Bears going after blank. I have the 49ers going after blank. And I have the Bears going after Mitch Trubisky, third overall. I want you guys to tune in to the first part of the 32 picks in 32 days. The Browns, I have them going after X. The 49ers, I have them going after X. So those are two episodes that are on the YouTube account, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast channel. This one I just completed. We got Mitch Trubisky going to the Chicago Bears if the Chicago Bears don't decide to trade the pick. So they asked Ryan Pace, the general manager of the Bears, what do you think about trading the third overall pick? And he said, you have to get value. So that kind of gives an inkling that they are shopping that pick. They're going to shop that pick come April 27th. Should be very interesting. I say that they trade back with the Browns, get one of the second-round picks from the Browns, get another middle-round pick from the Browns. It'll be very interesting. That would be my favorite candidate for that pick would be the Cleveland Browns. And then that would allow the Browns to draft Trubisky, have an answer from the former Ohio, Mr. Football Ohio guy at quarterback, in Cleveland, and then the Bears could work from there at 12 and replace Alshon Jeffrey. That's my take on the Chicago Bears. I'm Ryan Thomas. Tune in for part 2.